We're going to now add MVC to our application just by building it up manually. So we're not going to create the MVC application using a project template. We're just going to add it in. We've already done some of the legwork here with our use MVC. We also have the add MVC, so those are important. Now we can just go ahead and start creating a controller and also a view for the controller. I'm going to first create the folders that we need. So we're going to add a new folder. This is going to be called controllers. And then we're going to have another for views. And views. So in controllers, I'm going to add a controller. And we can just use this empty one here. So add, and I'm going to call it home controller. So you can see there's a few things that Visual Studio wants us to get, or it's going to go ahead and get for us in regards to NuGet packages. And we have the scaffolding that's being built up here. Instead of just adding a class and calling it home controller, I went through basically the wizard that helps with building out this other scaffolding that we're actually going to need. So you can see the class is not completely empty, but empty enough. And then we're going to as well, so we have this home controller. The view has a particular hierarchy, and I am going to choose add view in this folder here. So you can't just add, for example, home view.cs HTML. This is going to be our index, and you can't just, again, dump an index.cs HTML into here. There needs to be a folder called home, a folder by the same name of the controller. That's the way, at least in Visual Studio, MVC works. So we are going to call our view index.cs HTML. And let's see here. Actually, I need to just call this index. Now we can add that and see what we get. All right, so if I open up views, you can see here our home is missing. And down here, I'm just going to do something like this. So H1 is going to be home view displayed and save. So let's go ahead and run this now. We have our middleware in there for MVC, so we're going to see what happens at this point, just to kind of demonstrate with the views folder structure. So initially what we're going to get is just that string in the stream. Now we're going to do home and index. And you can see now we're just going back to the same place here. So let's go over here. What we're going to do is add a home folder. And move this into home. And then we're going to try and run this again. All right, so there's our stream. We're going to do home, back to index. And notice here, it's still not making any kind of difference for us. So there's one more thing we're going to do in the home controller, the final piece to get MVC up and running. So right above our method here on index, I'm going to add some routing information because we don't have any routing information. That can actually be added inside of where our middleware is in the startup class, right in here if we wanted to do anything special with routing. We don't really want to just follow convention. So for this over here, we have home, we have index. In the URL, we should be able to do /home/index and then have the view print out. So that's the kind of routing that we want. And all we're going to do is add a route attribute. And then the string is going to be the particular route that we're after. So I'm going to go ahead and run this now. So the first thing we're going to see is the string because that's where it's going by default. And then we can change this. Go to home index. And now our message is displaying. So not a lot going on to get MVC up and running in your application. And if we go into our startup, take this right here, and we're going to move it down here. And let's see what difference this makes now. All right, so let's go to our home index. Notice we're still getting my var message. So what's happening is that use MVC never got a chance to run. And in fact, if we put a breakpoint down here, we will see that in action. I should be able to just go ahead and refresh because that's going to run our pipeline again. So we'll see it run here. And let's see, go back in here. Actually, it's not going to run again because this runs initially, and then once the application is up and running, it doesn't run anymore. So I am going to go ahead and launch, and we'll see these breakpoints get hit as we flow through the pipeline. All right, so there's our first one. I'm just going to go ahead and step. Then we hit our use MVC. Just keep going. All right. Go to our home index, but it's not running, although it got hit. So again, it's still in regards to the order of what's happening here. The stream is taking over basically. And earlier when we had this, I'm going to go ahead and stop it so we can move it back up. We had the correct order of things to let MVC actually work. So that's why that is so important. Let's see, it's not giving it back. So use MVC. All right, so being there, we're able to actually initialize it before we hit this and let it go. Now, besides the routing that we did inside of the home controller, you can actually do the routing here. So the way to do that, it would look like this. We'd have routes, and now we can go ahead and start defining them. I'm going to open up a brace, close that there. So this would be routes, map, route, and this is something you've likely seen in other MVC applications. So I'll go ahead and open this, and we're going to have 3 different key values. So we'll have name, whatever we want it to be. So first route, for example, comma, then we can do template, of which I don't really have one now. I'm going to use first there. And then how do we want this to look? So we are going to open a brace, and I want to keep that on the same line. We'll have controller. Actually, it's just controller, not controller. So what I need here is a new. And then we're going to have controller, which you can see now, equals home. And we'll have our action set to index. And I'll just close this. And then that closes down there. So this is just another way to create them. And you can keep adding the routes in here. So you would just down here do another routes, map route, and build it out. And just keep chaining them if you wanted to for any kind of particular kinds of routes. But we're just going to use the simple technique we have with the attribute. Okay, so what we're going to do next is get into Razor Pages and learn what they are all about and how they function.